Hello, my name is Kiva Harper, and I'm an assistant professor in practice with the School of Social Work. For my project, I chose to use the technology of an iPad to pen in an application called Pinterest. And my title is Penning for Cultural Diversity. I teach a human behavior, diversity, and social justice class, and I teach it at the undergrad and graduate levels. And with that class, we learned a lot of the foundational things about social work as far as working with oppressed groups, the concept of privilege, and the concept of social justice. Generally, I teach that class using the PowerPoints for each ism, if you will, that we talk about, such as racism, sexism, etc. And we definitely do some hands-on activities in class as well. We do role plays, things like that. But I've often felt like the students don't always get that this is real and relevant and this is happening right now. Many times they focus on their personal views, which is certainly important, but I also want them to focus on the fact that these things are happening in the world today, and that as a future social worker, that we need to be advocating for these things to end, and we need to be, fighting for social justice, etc. So I decided to use Pinterest because Pinterest is a tool that is fairly user-friendly, and most people use it to pin, things related to their hobbies and recipes and things like that. There are 72.8 Pinterest users currently, 72.8 billion, sorry about that, Pinterest users right now. And that's an overwhelming amount. I also like the fact that although it's considered social media, it's really not the typical social media platform. And so my question for research is, can students in a human behavior, diversity, and social justice class learn more about oppressed populations and isms by seeking real-life examples in the media, their day-to-day lives, and in social media? The technology I used was an iPad. And an iPad enabled me to, access the post at any time, to look at their pins, to navigate through the pins a lot more efficiently than I would if I were on a smartphone or on my laptop. Also, if I chose to pin, I could, simply take a picture or something like that and pin it right then. So it makes it pretty convenient to use that application. So what I did was divide the class into small groups of 4 to 5, and I had each group create a Pinterest board that they maintained all semester. The boards consisted of videos, recent news articles and current events, memes, and other social media posts. I was very specific that the memes needed to definitely have a message in it and not just the cutesy, little cartoonish memes with no significance. And there were several times during the semester where we spent some class time reviewing the other group's boards and reflecting on them and making comments. I assessed to see if this was beneficial, if it was working, if it was helpful, if I was meeting my goal by reviewing the boards and student surveys. I monitored the boards for participation. Once I viewed the board for the first time, I was able to follow it, and that way anytime there is something added to the board, I'm notified. I also used my application of Pinterest to monitor engagement and application of what was learned in the classroom setting. There were certain current events that took place throughout this term. For example, the Ethan Couch, the affluenza teen is a great example of classism, and I wanted to see if my students were pinning about that, and updating their Pinterest boards to reflect the things that were going on with that case and examples of what we were discussing in class. Once the semester is over, I will compare the overall grades, student feedback surveys, and participation in both classes. Each class was given the Pinterest assignment as half of their class participation grade. Let's look at a couple of the boards. I chose the best boards, in my opinion, from both classes. The first board is from my undergraduate class. This class, it's the same class, but my graduate students who are non-advanced standing, meaning they don't have a degree, a bachelor's in social work, have to take this course. My bachelor level students who major in social work don't take this in grad school, and they can finish their master's a lot faster. So that's why it's the same course for both. I love this board for many reasons. One is that the board really exceeded my expectations. If you'll look, they've pinned 303 pins. There are 4 followers, including me, people that follow the board, and so I'm assuming these are people or other groups in the class that are following the board. And again, when you follow, this is where you go to follow, you get notifications, so I love that. As you can see, they talked about racism, ageism. Let's click on ageism and see what they came up with. So under ageism, they talk about some current events, one in which Yoko Ono and Madonna fight ageism in different ways. This is another one, an elderly couple that took tap dancing lessons. Ageism in the media, love that one. Newsweek, an article in Newsweek, a few video clips, one from, I don't know, maybe CNN. Oh, that's John Mayer. Okay, then another one from BBC News. A few cartoons on children's rights. A quote. Love it. And then they also go on to talk about heterosexism, classism, ableism. They even covered a few that I hadn't specified or that we didn't talk about specifically in the class, like anti-Semitism, nationalism, dualism versus relativism, ethnocentrism. So you can tell that they are definitely thinking about this assignment, going that extra mile. If you look here, these are their news clips. You know, I emphasized the current events. That was a big one for me. I wanted them to stay abreast of current events. They don't have very many. I would definitely like for them to have more, but these are few, and there are also more that are incorporated within each ism. The other thing that I love that this group did was they decided that, what are we going to do about all of this? So they made a board called Let's Make a Change, and it pretty much highlights our profession and the things that we do. You know, here's one that says social workers change the world. There's a blog community of social workers. Let's see. A few quotes. Just a positive, inspirational board. And then there are pictures, you know. Okay, and so I did a brief survey because we have not had our student feedback surveys yet. And what I found was that most of the students had already used Pinterest before. It wasn't their first time. 85% of the students believe that the pinning enhanced their learning. 63% of the students reported sharing their Pinterest page with someone outside of the group, which is a big goal. And then 70% found it, I don't know why I have that somewhat in there, apologies. 70% found it beneficial to pin the current events. And I've shared a few comments from students. Most of them talked about how it helped them to stay abreast of current events. And then overall, I think it was a success. It accomplished what I wanted it to. I wanted them to think about this. I wanted them to think about this outside of the classroom. I wanted them to think about this in every aspect of their lives this semester. I also learned other ways to incorporate pinning. And in the future, I think I will have a board that I maintain for each class. And if possible, maybe give the other students an opportunity to pin as well.